In the previous lecture, we discussed calling the same method with different numbers of arguments. For example, a sum method that can add either 2 numbers or 3 numbers. In the examples we used, it was clear how many arguments each method accepted. We knew the sum method could take 2 or 3 arguments. But sometimes in programming, we don't know ahead of time exactly how many arguments a method will get. This is where the params keyword comes in handy. The params keyword lets us create a method parameter that accepts a variable number of arguments of a specific type. So params makes it possible for a method to work even when we don't know upfront how many arguments there will be. It adds flexibility. Hello guys, welcome back. Imagine we want to add up different amounts of numbers. Normally, we would need separate methods for adding 2 numbers, 3 numbers, and so on. With params, we can make one method that works for any number of numbers. All we need to do is define a parameter with the params keyword, followed by an array of the desired type. Then we provide a name for the parameter. This makes the parameter an array that will contain all the number arguments passed into the method. Inside the method, we can loop through the numbers array and add up the values. Alright, let's try it out in VS Code to see how params keyword makes our code simpler when summing a variable number of arguments. Okay, we'll start with 3 sum methods that each add a different number of int arguments. Now let's try calling the sum method with 5 arguments. As you can see, we get an error because there is no overload for 5 parameters. To fix this, we define a new sum method using params. Here, let's put the params keyword, then an int array type, and name the parameter numbers. Inside the method, we iterate over the numbers and calculate the sum. Next, we return the result. Now the error is gone. As you can see, params allows us to pass any number of arguments. We can even remove the other overloads since params covers all the calls in the main method. Okay, as you can see, when we run it, params handles calling sum with different number of arguments. Alright, there are a few rules to keep in mind when using params. We can pass the arguments individually, separated by commas like how we've done so far, or we can pass them as an array. Behind the scenes, params converts the arguments into a single-dimensional array of the specific type. We're also allowed to call the method without any parameters. Let's try passing the last method call as an array. And calling sum without arguments. Now let's run the application again. As you can see, when we pass an array as the arguments, we get the same result as before. And when we pass no arguments, the length of the params array in the for each loop is 0. Therefore, the result is the initial value of the result variable, which is 0. Okay, rule number 2. The params parameter must be the last parameter defined in the method signature. We can define other regular parameters before it. Alright, calling sum without any parameters doesn't make sense here, since we need at least 2 values to calculate a sum. So let's add 2 int parameters before the params in the method signature. Okay, if we put params between the 2 int parameters, we'll get an error, since it must be last. Also, in the method calls, we'll encounter 2 errors. This happens because we can no longer call the sum method with less than 2 arguments. The first 2 arguments are for number 1 and number 2, and the rest are for the params parameter. Here and here, we're calling the sum method with 0 and 1 argument. To fix it, let's remove the call with no arguments. And for the array call, we can take the first 2 items and pass them as number 1 and number 2. Alright, rule number 3. Only one params parameter is allowed per method signature. For example, if we try to define another params parameter in the sum method, it will cause an error. Okay, done. See you soon.